Have you ever been humiliated so absurdly that your blood boiled and the floor seemed to vanish under your feet? I have. And it was right there, in that exact moment, that I made my decision. Claudio was going to pay. Not with a punch. Not with a scream. He was going to pay in the way that hurts arrogant people like him the most. With his career, his reputation, with everything. Let me take you back a few weeks before that grotesque episode to give you some context. I had been working for 7 years at a tech company called Digidrop. A mid-sized firm, solid projects, but plagued by one major issue: rotten leadership. Claudio had been appointed as our IT manager less than a year before, and since then, the atmosphere in the department had tanked. What once was a tight-knit team had become a war zone. Every man for himself, with everyone afraid of becoming the next target of his daily humiliations. Claudio was the type of boss who read aggressive leadership books like they were the Bible. He held screaming meetings, interrupted everyone, called interns useless, and said things like, "If you can't handle pressure, go sell coconuts on the beach." The guy was straight out of a corporate nightmare. And sadly, he was very good at keeping up appearances with upper management. He delivered results. He doctored numbers for presentations, smiled in the hallways, offered coffee to directors. But with the team, he was a despot. I was one of the senior analysts. I'd joined back when the company had fewer than 20 employees, helped structure the IT department, created processes that were still in use to this day. But none of that mattered to Claudio. From the start, he had it out for me. Maybe because I didn't laugh at his jokes. Maybe because I was respected by the team. Maybe because I never kissed up to him. Things got worse the month before the cleaning incident. He started assigning me tasks outside my scope, then cut me out of meetings with upper management, and finally spread rumors that I was demotivated. Tensions with coworkers rose. I was isolated. Looking back, it was clear he was setting me up. I just didn't know why yet. On the morning of the big day, the office printer, which had been acting up, finally died. Claudio had already asked for a report on the maintenance costs, but since he used every little thing as an excuse to shame someone, he came over to my desk with that smug little smile. "Hey Marcos, didn't you say you had fixed this piece of junk?" I tried to stay calm. "The issue is with the network connection, Claudio. The cable to the central server is causing interference. I already requested a replacement." "Interference?" he said loudly, turning to the rest of the team. "Check this out, folks. Our tech genius thinks the issue is interference. You know what's really interfering, Marcos? Your inability to fix basic stuff." The room went silent. Some co-workers lowered their heads. Others pretended to be engrossed in their screens. And then, he did it. Claudio tossed a cup of coffee on the floor, on purpose, and pointed at it. "Since you're good for nothing else, Marcos, at least make this floor shine. Go on, show us what you got, maybe with your tongue. If you can't handle networking, maybe you're better at cleaning." It took a second for it to register. I stood there, frozen in shock. The silence was deafening. And then he laughed. He laughed. And said, "I'm just joking, guys. Just a joke. Right, Marcos? All in good fun, huh?" But it wasn't a joke. He knew it. I knew it. Everyone in that room knew it. It was calculated. A public humiliation masked as humor. And right there, in that exact moment, I decided he was going to regret it. In the days that followed, I kept my head down, pretended I was shaken, ready to quit, like I had lost my will to fight. But inside, I was on fire. I started working, silently, crafting a meticulous plan. A cold, intelligent, and final revenge, and I had weapons. Claudio was arrogant, but stupid. Stupid enough to leave a trail. Like the dozens of emails where he doctored productivity numbers to present enhanced reports to upper management, or the times he authorized using company systems for personal favors. Like that one day he had 2 analysts drop everything to set up a private server for his brother-in-law's home theater. All of it documented. But the biggest weapon I had came from his own phone. Claudio had a habit of sending voice notes on WhatsApp with instructions that blatantly violated company policy. And guess who was the recipient of most of them? Me. And yes, I had copies of them all. All I needed now was one last piece. Something to prevent him from pulling the classic corporate excuse. I was misunderstood. So, the next day, I wore my smartwatch to work. A new model, with automatic voice recording. When he stepped into the room for another one of his theatrical speeches, the watch was already recording. And that was the day he made his final mistake. He openly admitted, without realizing it, that he had forged data from an $800,000 project just to secure an extra quarterly bonus. Said it out loud, in front of witnesses, and I had it on tape. That night, I didn't sleep much. I replayed the humiliation over and over. Claudio's laughter echoed in my head like a siren. But with each replay, my resolve grew stronger. I knew payback alone wouldn't be enough. I wanted justice. I wanted to do it the right way, but in a way that hurt. That would make him think of me every time he tried to sleep peacefully. I started compiling the evidence. 7 years worth of emails, spreadsheets, messages, and screenshots. And now, with the smartwatch audio, I had the missing link. The proof that he wasn't just a crappy boss. He was corrupt. I created a password-protected digital archive with all the evidence. I organized folders by category workplace harassment, with emails and messages where he insulted coworkers, data fraud, screenshots of altered spreadsheets and real versus fake comparisons, misuse of company resources, orders to use systems for personal favors, incriminating audio, including the infamous $800K project bonus confession. Then I built a presentation, a real PowerPoint of destruction. Every file timestamped, every action matched with witnesses, with impact, cross-referenced data. To make sure none of this could vanish, I backed it up to the cloud with a secure password and shared the link with a trusted friend. In case anything happened to me or I was suddenly fired, he'd know exactly what to do. But the dossier alone wasn't enough. I needed allies. I reached out to Luana, a colleague in the finance department who had also suffered under Claudio. He once made her redo an entire report because the font was too ugly. And in a meeting with the directors, he said she didn't understand numbers because she was a woman. She had never confronted him, but I knew she held a grudge. Lou, I need your help. I have a plan to take Claudio down, but I can't do it alone. She hesitated for a few seconds. I opened my laptop and played the audio. Her face shifted from surprise to anger, then to a subtle, satisfied smile. He always thought no one would stand up to him. I'm in. With her on board, things started to move. Luana managed to get me a copy of a confidential executive bonus spreadsheet. That's when we found out Claudio was receiving 2 bonuses, one official and the other under the table, as a consultant for a project that hadn't even been completed. Both approved thanks to his forged reports. But the real game changer came from an unexpected place. I had a bold idea: leak the information to the press. But not just any press. I knew someone. Natalia, an ex-girlfriend of mine, now an investigative journalist. We had ended things on good terms, and she worked for a major news outlet. I sent her a message with just the basics. Nat, I've got a corporate bombshell. Fraud, harassment, corruption, all documented. If you're interested, I'll explain. Everything, she replied in 10 minutes. The next day, we met at a discreet cafe. I brought a flash drive with a filtered version of the dossier. She read it in silence for 30 minutes. When she finished, she looked up and said, This is front-page material, but I need formal authorization or a whistleblower willing to go public. You'll have one. I decided Claudio didn't deserve to be taken down from the shadows. I was going to show my face, file a formal report, with my name, out in the open. The following week, I submitted an official complaint to HR, with copies sent to the legal department and the executive board. They didn't know yet about the article that was about to drop, but they knew a scandal was coming. Of course, Claudio found out. He called me into his office 2 days later. "Marcos, care to explain what the hell you think you're doing?" "I'm simply following the company's code of ethics, Claudio. You should try reading it sometime." He turned red, locked his jaw. He knew he couldn't threaten me directly, so he tried sarcasm. "You're not going anywhere with this. They always protect those who deliver results. Not when the results are built on lies." I walked out of that office calm as a monk, and the next day, the bomb dropped. Headline on a national news portal. Tech company manager accused of million-dollar fraud and workplace harassment. Subheadline. Employee provides documents, audio recordings, and internal data in whistleblower report. The company erupted in chaos. The executive board called an emergency meeting. HR sent out urgent memos. Claudio was temporarily suspended for an internal investigation. But that was... I knew they'd try to bury it. That they might offer me hush money, or even try to fire me for breach of trust. So I launched phase 2 of my plan. I sent the full dossier, every file, directly to the labor prosecutor's office. And the federal tax authority, with an official receipt of delivery. Yes, Claudio wasn't just humiliating employees. He was dodging taxes, redirecting funds from government-incentivized projects, and inflating internal budgets to pocket the difference. His whole world began to collapse. 3 days later, I got a call from the company's internal ombudsman. They wanted to talk. They offered me a deal. A friendly exit with additional compensation. I refused. I said I wouldn't leave until the person responsible for the crimes was officially terminated and held accountable. They got the message. The following week, Claudio was officially fired for just cause. He was escorted out of the building by corporate security. It was a movie scene. Head down, sunken eyes, holding a box with his things. Not a single employee said goodbye. Not even the bootlickers. Everyone knew. But it still wasn't over. The article gained traction. Another media outlet republished it. People online started digging into his name. They found out that, at a previous company, he'd already been accused of similar misconduct, but it had been silenced with an NDA. Now, the truth was out. Claudio became persona non grata in the industry. No tech company wanted to be associated with him. No headhunter called. His LinkedIn was deactivated. He tried to give an interview to defend himself, but the journalist, thoroughly briefed by me, presented the evidence live on air. At the end of that month, I got an email from a longtime employee. "Dude, you did what we all wished we could. Thank you." Another wrote, "I never thought anyone would have the guts. You're a legend around here now." But the best part came weeks later. I was at a cafe when a notification popped up on my phone. A new job listing for a basic computer instructor at a local technical school. The name of the instructor? Claudio S. Yes. He was now teaching beginners. The same ex-manager who used to humiliate others was now teaching people how to create folders in Windows. I smiled. Not out of cruelty, but out of justice. True justice can take time. But when it arrives, it's beautiful. Watching Claudio disappear from the corporate world was more satisfying than I ever expected. I won't lie. I'm no saint. For a long time, I imagined 1,000 ways to confront him, and none were as clean and devastating as the one I ended up pulling off. But the strangest part wasn't the revenge itself. It was what came after. See, when you spend so long living with abuse, tension, and humiliation, whether subtle or blatant, your body and mind adjust. It's like living in a war zone. You don't realize how broken you are until the gunfire finally stops. In the days following Claudio's firing, the company went quiet. Literally. Meetings became shorter. The forced jokes vanished. The team started talking to each other again, and the hallways no longer felt like minefields. I was called into a meeting with the COO, a serious man who rarely left the 10th floor. "Marcos, I want to thank you for your courage, and on behalf of the company, I want to apologize for what you went through." He got straight to the point. He wanted me to step in as interim head of the IT department. For now, there would be no new manager. The team needed stability, and everyone trusted me. My first instinct was to refuse. I didn't want it to look like I had done all this for a promotion. But then I realized, accepting the position wasn't selling out. It was stepping into a space that I, and many of my colleagues, had rightfully earned. I accepted with one condition. The company had to bring in an external consultant to review the organizational environment and recommend cultural changes. They agreed. The consultant arrived 2 weeks later, a seasoned corporate psychologist. He started with one-on-one interviews, then moved on to group dynamics. The team, once quiet and reserved, began to open up. Stories of harassment, fear, injustice, the toxic legacy Claudio had left behind. It was painful, but necessary. Like cleaning out a deep wound. The sting comes first, then the healing begins. Meanwhile, news about Claudio kept surfacing. Turns out he had used the company's name to secure outside contracts without authorization. That led to a criminal investigation for fraud. The tax authority got involved, and, according to reliable sources, his assets were temporarily frozen. Saw a photo of him in a WhatsApp group a few weeks later. Disheveled hair, sunken eyes, trying to sell an executive management course online for $49.90. Not even bots signed up. But the most important part wasn't his fall. It was our rebuilding. The team began to breathe again. I called for a different kind of meeting. No agenda. I brought pizza, we turned off the computers and just talked about life, fears, plans, and that's when I realized the real revenge wasn't destroying Claudio. It was reclaiming the environment he tried to poison. Luana, the colleague from finance who helped me, became manager of her department a few months later. Our joint efforts got noticed by the execs. We began collaborating more actively and launched an internal campaign called Ethics and Respect, which was adopted company-wide. A new code of conduct was drafted, and for the first time, it was created with employee input. I received an internal award for positive leadership. A tacky little plaque, I'll admit, but it now sits proudly at the top of my bookshelf. But you know what the real impact was? It came when a new intern, Isabella, stopped me in the hallway and said, "Someone told me it used to be impossible to work in this department, but now it's the most pleasant place in the company. Thank you for making that happen." That broke me. I did all of this at first, fueled by rage, by pain, by the desire to make Claudio pay. But in the end, I realized my actions had a bigger ripple effect. It didn't just change my life. It changed the lives of dozens of people who had been silently suffering too. Of course, not everything was perfect. For a while, there were whispers. People saying I'd been too extreme, that I could have handled it internally. But those voices faded as results spoke for themselves. Performance went up. Turnover went down. The team, once demotivated, became a model of productivity. Not through pressure, but through freedom. And Claudio? I heard he tried to sue the company for emotional damages. The case was dismissed for lack of evidence and obvious bad faith. After that, he vanished. Some say he moved to another city. Others claim he started a small business with his brother. Nothing confirmed. But honestly, it doesn't matter. Life took care of him. One thing I learned through all of this is that true justice doesn't have to be fast, but it has to be right. Time will always put people in their rightful place. And the truth, that stubborn, relentless truth, always finds a way to come out. Today, almost 2 years after that incident, I'm still at the same company. Now as the official coordinator of the department. We have a zero-tolerance policy for harassment. We created an anonymous reporting channel. We set humane performance goals. And most importantly, we foster an environment where no one has to fear their own manager. Sometimes, when I walk past the spot where Claudio used to yell at people, I remember the day he was escorted out with that little box in his hands. And I smile. Not out of joy for his downfall, but out of relief that we're free of him. If you've read this far and you've gone through something similar, I want you to know this. You're not crazy. You're not weak. And you're not alone. Workplace abuse is real, and silence only serves the abuser. Be brave. Document everything. Find allies. And when the time is right, act. Calmly, smartly, and with dignity. Because in the end, the revenge that hurts the most is the one disguised as justice.